Hey guys, what's happening? This is Devansh and welcome to the United Talk. Here I am today talking to you guys about who should Manchester United sell in the summer and who should Manchester United bring in the summer. So in terms of who should Manchester United sell, it's very easy, right? Andres Pereira, Jesse Lingard, Alexis Sanchez, Chris Smalling, Phil Jones, and to top that, Marcus Rojo. All of them six players we don't need. And I know half of them are on loan. Rojo, Smalling, and Alexis are already on loan. So Jones is there with us. Lingard and Pereira sadly are there with us as well. So we need to remove this deadwood, and it's pretty clear. And there needs to be no argument or even a discussion about this. The point is, who do we get in? And see, first things first, and I've just read this because of this coronavirus outbreak. What has happened is we don't know how the season is going to end. We don't know whether the season is going to actually end or not. Whether the teams are going to play till the 30th of June. There'll be a shortage of the transfer window. What are they going to do? We don't know yet. We can just speculate and speculate, but we don't know. The whole point of me telling you this is because there is a possibility that this time the transfer market will be a shorter one. The duration of the transfer window will be short. And to top that, because football clubs, stand to make a lot of loss during this period because of no matches being played behind the doors or whatever it is behind closed doors. We don't know we don't know how the financial situation of each club would be. While bigger clubs like Manchester United are okay and will be okay with this problem, the smaller clubs may have a big problem in terms of finances because a lot of their revenue comes because of these matches on the match day. So, with all this being said, I think the problem is that any club, including Manchester United, with the financial power, financial muscle of Manchester United, might be hesitant to go out and buy someone for 100 and 120 million, one player for that matter. So this is a big problem, and that's the reason why we don't know who should we even focus on getting in the summer. But if you talk about a squad itself, I mean, starting from the goalkeeper position, now it's a good position to be in right now because who do you pick a number one as a number one goalkeeper for next season? Should it be De Gea? Should it be Dean Henderson? Because Romero needs to stay as a number two, and I don't think Henderson or De Gea will be okay with playing that number two role anyway. So Romero becomes the number two. Who do you play as your number one goalkeeper? For me, it still should be David De Gea, and I know that he's not been in the same form of his life that he was about 2 3 years ago. But people tend to forget what he's done for this club. People tend to forget that he was the players player of the year 4 times out of 5. So that's a big deal, and according to me, he still is one of the best goalkeepers in the world. Yes, he has done more mistakes this season, but I think every goalkeeper goes through that phase. And I still feel that, like I've said before, he is one of the best in the world. So I think we should still have De Gea between the sticks next season. With that being said, Dean Henderson, according to me, should be sent back on loan to Sheffield United, simply because number one, they are going to be staying in the Premier League. Number two, we are sure that Dean Henderson will be the number one goalkeeper, and he will play either week in week out in the Premier League or also in Europa League if Sheffield is going to, or if Sheffield can qualify for the Europa League. That's a question right now. But if that happens and Dean Henderson plays in Sheffield United for one more year, the amount of development that he's achieved over the past 1 year is commendable, right? And he can be even better. He's 23 right now. He can be even better if he completes one more year with Sheffield because I think they are doing a great job with him. So I think once he comes back, then we take a decision on David De Gea because then De Gea will have 2 years remaining on the contract at the end of 21 season. So then we can take a decision, and then Sergio Romero is 33 this year. So after one more year, Sergio Romero is 34, David De Gea is 30. There will be decision time, and at that moment of time, we can take a decision and move on from this conundrum. But right now, I feel Dean Henderson should go back on loan to Sheffield United. Coming to our backline, our defensive backline, and I'm actually very happy about it because with Luke Shaw and Brendan Williams on one side and Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Diogo Dalot on the other, I think our fullbacks, we are sorted in those areas, at least for this summer. And then you have the central defensive partnership, and people often ask me this question: who do I think should play in that central defensive role, up with Harry Maguire, of course. And here's what I think. I don't think we need to buy any other defender. We should not buy any other central defender this summer because that will be a waste of energy, a waste of time. We have, according to me, it should be Axel Toonzibi who plays alongside Harry Maguire, simply because one, Toonzibi is young, he's tall, he's strong, and he's fast. And that's just my first point. Toonzibi is very good. And I was also considering Eric Bailly to be a partner for Harry Maguire, but I thought, I mean, I can't really trust Eric Bailly to be fit for the entire season. If that happens, he can also be a partner for Harry Maguire. But Eric Bailly is a cartoon. I mean, you don't know what he's gonna do. If he does something well, he's gonna be great at it. But if he fucks up, Eric Bailly, and he has a tendency to fuck up also because he'll come up with something or the other. He'll do something that'll just make you laugh more than regretting the decision. So it should be for me. That's why I'm inclining a little bit towards Axel Toonzibi. But think about it. We have Harry Maguire, Axel Toonzibi, we have Victor Lindelof, and we do have Eric Bailly as well. And on top of that, we have someone called Timothy Fosu-Mensah. Now we are very much sorted in that department of centre backs, and there are people who can fill up those positions if somebody gets injured or somebody needs a rest. So let's just move on to the central defensive midfield position. Now here there's a problem because right now, and I'm not even talking about attacking midfield, I'm talking about people who can sit, defend, and maybe create something from the deep, right? We have Fred, who's more of a number eight. He's not a defensive midfielder. He's not an attacking midfielder. He's more like a number eight. We have McTominay, who's closer to being a defensive midfielder and can be a good defensive midfielder, but he's still. I mean, he's done great this season. One of the best players when he's fit right now for us. But McTominay is one option, and apart from that, we just have Nemanja Matic, who's 32 this season. And I mean, there's been talks about Matic getting a new deal, a 2-year deal this season, which makes sense because he's been playing really well, and that's the place where I was wrong before. I mean, initially when I had started this channel, I had mentioned that Nemanja Matic should be sold because he's old and he can't cover. While that is still true, he is old, he's getting older, but in the past few months, he's shown us that whenever he has been called upon, he's done a job for Manchester United, and that's what you need. And he brings that experience, that leadership onto the table as well for these young players. So I think, yes, Matic giving him a new deal does make sense now, given his performances and his professionalism as well, considering that he was out for a longer period, out of the starting lineup for a longer period when McTominay and Fred were playing so well together. So it does make sense to give him a contract. But think about it. Apart from these three, right now we have Jimmy Garner, and that's the problem. With Jimmy Garner, although Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has given a lot of opportunities to so many youngsters, Jimmy Garner for some reason hasn't gotten that opportunity, or maybe just once or twice. So if Jimmy Garner is not ready next season, who do you have over there? You need someone apart from these three players to play in that area just before, sorry, the defenders, just to protect them. So if McTominay and Fred play together, then there's only Nemanja Matic, who's a part of the squad, who can come in and fill a role. So I think we are short of a defensive midfielder. Who can we get is a bigger problem now, because I would personally prefer a Wilfred Ndidi. He's been proven in the Premier League. He's young, he's tenacious, he's very good. He's like a stopper, and he's very good in terms of reading the opposition play, reading the opposition attacks and stopping them. But he will not come for cheap from Leicester City, because Leicester City most likely will be qualifying for Champions League next season. And if that's the case, why would Leicester sell Wilfred Ndidi? And if we don't qualify and Leicester does, then more of that. I mean, why would even Wilfred Ndidi want to come to Manchester United? I mean, we are the biggest club in the world, but I mean, he gets a chance of playing in the Champions League. So there's a big if over there. The amount he will be costing to Manchester United is another problem. The second option could be Declan Rice. Again, Declan Rice will not be coming in cheap, because we are the beggars. We are the beggars, and we are in desperate need of someone to play in that position. Declan Rice is right now 21 years old, if I'm not wrong, and he has potential to develop into a very good central defensive midfielder. So, and English as well. So Declan Rice is a very good option. But if you want to move abroad, and if you feel that these players will be too expensive, because I still feel that even Declan Rice will not be less than 50 million or around 50 million, while Ndidi could be easily 60 million. We can also look at someone from Borussia Dortmund, actually, which is Julian Weigl, and he's been doing really great in that position for Dortmund. And then you can also look at someone from Lyon, which is Lucas Trossard. Now, many of you don't know about Trossard. Trossard has been actually with Lyon for about 4 to 5 years now, so he will be itching for a move. Premier League is a prospect, right? It's a very, very dreamy prospect, and Manchester United is one of the biggest clubs in the world, still having that pulling power. So Lucas Trossard and Julian Weigl are also viable options for United, but all depends upon how much budget do we have, and what are these players costing. So there are a few options in the defensive midfield, and then you move forward to the attacking midfield. And I know Bruno, he came from Portugal and he has lit up Manchester United, but we do need someone else apart from Bruno there. And when you talk about Paul Pogba being there, if Paul Pogba ends up staying, it's amazing. And I do feel that even if Paul Pogba stays at Manchester United, which might not happen, I still feel we need someone to be there as a youngster, because do need someone, because right now we have Juan Mata there, who's again getting old. He is old. And then we have Angel Gomez, who's not been given chances this season, and we don't know whether he's going to stay or he's going to leave, because his contract is ending post June. So if Pogba ends up staying, and if even Angel Gomez ends up staying, and with Juan Mata over there, I think then we do have someone, we do have enough people in that position. But if that doesn't happen, I think the best possible options for us would be, again, going back to Leicester. One would be James Maddison, and two would be Aston Villa's Jack Grealish. Now, for me personally, I feel James Maddison will be too expensive, again for the same reasons that, like I mentioned before. But Jack Grealish is someone who's, I mean, he's that one player who we are lacking in terms of an attitude as well, right? You look at Dele Alli, and I hate that guy. I just hate that guy. You look at Bernardo Silva, I hate that fellow. We do need someone in our team who's like that, who opposition players, opposition fans hate, and he just brings it out of other people, right? So Jack Grealish is that person. I think in terms of ability, he and Madison are very similar. Age very similar. Technical prowess very similar. Costing will be much less, because I feel if Aston Villa do end up getting relegated, if they are in need of money, I think 50 or 60 million, 50 million should be good for someone like a Jack Grealish, and he will also be itching for a move to Manchester United. So that's a very good prospect to have. But again, going abroad, and if these two deals are not possible because of any reason, we have other people abroad who can then be a part of this. And there are so many people abroad as well. I mean, going back to I think Thomas Lemar at Atletico Madrid, and while he is not really an attacking midfielder, he's a winger per se, but he can play that role. I don't know. He's not really set up. He's not really done anything at Atletico, but he could be a good option for Manchester United as well. And then you talk about someone like Jadon Sancho at the right midfield, and while he's a right midfielder, he's not an attacking midfielder. But okay, we'll come back to Sancho later. But what about Donny van de Beek at Ajax? He can be a very good addition as well. Depends on, does he want to go to Real Madrid? Does Ajax sell him, because they've already sold Ziyech to Chelsea for this summer? So what happens with Donny van de Beek? That's another question. And then there's Kai Havertz at Bayer Leverkusen. He's also developed a lot in the past 1-2 years, so that's also an option for us. So we do have options in the transfer market. Depends upon, we don't need to be held ransom to anyone. But again, coming back to the fact that the players who are Premier League tested are the players you should go for. And these players are someone like a Declan Rice, Wilfred Ndidi, James Maddison, Jack Grealish. You should be choosing from these players, but the problem is with Premier League rights and everything, these players might be expensive. The most logical for me would be Declan Rice with a Jack Grealish, because Declan Rice, while doesn't need to be started every week, and you have McTominay, Fred and Matters doing that, Jack Grealish adds that tenacity to our midfield, which we are missing, which only Bruno Fernandes so far has been able to give. And then you come to the forward positions, and right now, while we do have Marcus Rashford, we have Anthony Martial, we have Mason Greenwood, we have Daniel James, and then we have Mr. Ighalo Odion. Now, Mr. Ighalo will be leaving in the summer because he is just a loanee at Manchester United. Although, if possible, I would love to keep Odion Ighalo, simply because there were talks about Harry Kane wanting to join Manchester United or wanting to leave Tottenham, for that matter. That's just bollocks for me. It's crazy, because First of all, Harry Kane, if he leaves Tottenham and doesn't want to go abroad, for him to come to Manchester United will have to pay Daniel Levy about 200 million for him, which is not possible. That's number one. Number two, if Harry Kane or someone like a Harry Kane, let's say a Timo Werner comes to Manchester United, by the way, Timo Werner wants to go to Liverpool as well, so we don't know. But if these kind of players do end up coming to Manchester United, then what happens to Anthony Martial? Because a Timo Werner and a Harry Kane would want to start week in, week out. So what happens to Anthony Martial? And I do think that Anthony Martial is a very good number 9. He is not consistent, and that's a problem. But you look at his goal return, the amount of matches that he's played, the fact that he has not had someone like a Bruno Fernandes throughout the season, and yet he scored so many goals. Anthony Martial's conversion rate is also among the top 3 in the Premier League this season. I think it's only Sergio Aguero and Harry Kane in terms of strikers in the Premier League who've had a better scoring conversion rate. So Anthony Martial, what happens to him if these superstars come to our team? It's a big question. And first of all, I don't think that's going to happen anyway. So, sorry. And Odion Ighalo solved this problem for us because A, he is a United fan, so he's going to do anything and everything to stay at the club. B, he will be okay playing as a second fiddle to Anthony Martial. And C, this way, we don't need to spend so much money because really the transfer money is all that you spend on Odion Ighalo would be what, 21 million? Not more than that. And maybe then his wages, which will not be a problem as well. So it's a viable option. But if that doesn't happen, then who do you go for? I mean, you have someone like a Moussa Dembele who is eyeing a return to the Premier League. But a Moussa Dembele, and how much will he cost us? I don't know. Then you talk about the right wing position and Jadon Sancho, and what I was mentioning earlier in my video that 100 million or 120 million for Jadon Sancho, if Paul Pogba doesn't leave, by the way, is very difficult because that amount of money spending on one player, if you spend 100 million on one player and your outgoings are less or you don't have any significant outgoing, because I'm failing to understand who is the player who we sell and we get money from apart from Paul Pogba. Phil Jones, Chris Smalling, Alexis Sanchez, Mr. Lingard, Andres Pereira, they are not gonna, and Marcus Soho, they are not gonna generate more than 40, 50 odd million, 50 million max, 60 million, right? And that too, if you sell all 6 of them, nothing more than this. So that's what I feel. So where do you get the money if you don't sell Paul Pogba to buy Jadon Sancho? You don't. And in that case, you look at someone like a Leon Bailey, again at Bayer Leverkusen, because Leon Bailey at 22, 23, if I'm not wrong, is a very good winger. And his best position, he's come out and said that his best position is on the right-hand side. So while we do have a Leon Bailey or a Jadon Sancho as an option, then we have a Moussa Dembele, Odion Ighalo, Anthony Martial as options, and we have Marcus Rashford, Daniel James as options, and then you have people like Tahith Chong who are there. So I think all in all, our squad needs a rebuild, which is already taking place. But these are a few players that we can look to actually incorporate in the side, we can look to actually buy. But to be honest with you, if we go for, let's say, 3 players in the summer, because the trend has been, by Manchester United, the trend has been that since Jose Mourinho came and Zlatan Ibrahimovic came, since that season we bought 4 players, and after that we've been trying to buy players. And if the transfer window has been is reduced, the time frame is reduced, then you have to worry about Manchester United negotiators, because these people take a lot of time to negotiate a deal, and the very evident example of that is Bruno Fernandes. And while Sporting Lisbon, I mean, while United thought that they can bring the money down, but in the end they were not able to. So Sporting Lisbon also played a game and they won, and they kept Bruno Fernandes till the end of January. And I mean, we are really bad. We suck at negotiating at Manchester United, so that's a big problem. So let's just assume that they buy 3 players in the summer. Who should those 3 players be? Number 1, and I can't insist enough on this, should be a right winger. Because we do need a right winger, we don't have any out and out right winger in our team. So we do need one. That's number 1. Number 2, we do need an attacking midfielder if Paul Pogba goes, because if Paul Pogba leaves Manchester United, then there's a problem. You cannot depend on Bruno Fernandes to play each and every game of the season. You cannot. I'm sorry, you cannot. Even if he's a professional footballer at the peak of his physicality, he will need rest. If Paul Pogba does end up staying, then we can focus more on getting another striker, because a striker is something that we do need. We do need to give we do need to take into account that, again, Anthony Martial, like Eric Bailly, is not always fit. He has had his injury concerns. He is injury prone, so we don't know for how long can Martial stay put. So another striker would be then a priority, and then third position for me would be a central defensive midfielder, because we do lack in that position, and it was evident when both Matic and McTominay were injured for Manchester United, and when that happened, we were really dying for that defensive midfielder. So I think striker, right winger, attacking midfielder, defensive midfielder. There are four positions that we need to fill. If we can fill all these four positions, then that's great. Now, 50 million for a defensive midfielder, 50, 60 million for an attacking midfielder, another 100 million for a right winger if it's Sancho, or a 40 odd million for a Leon Bay, and around 20 odd million for 20, 30 odd million for a striker like Odion Ighalo, if Ighalo comes along, or a Musa Dembele around 50 million. So all in all, we're looking at a spend of 200 million if we don't sell Pogba and Jadon Sancho doesn't come in. Then there's a total spend of 200 million, and then you get money from selling players like Lingard, Pereira, Smalling, Sanchez, Rojo, Jones. Even if you get a 60, 70 odd million from selling these six players, I mean, we are looking at a transfer window of spending about 100 to 120 million net and getting in these wonderful three or four players. So I think that should be the strategy for me. But again, it all depends upon the Paul Pogba situation. How much money can we generate? What's going to happen? Are we going to finish the season? Are we going to be qualifying for the Champions League? Is there going to be a reduced transfer window? So there are multiple factors that need to be taken into consideration. But all in all, I mean, the big debate, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer or Mauricio Pochettino. Someone would also say Allegri. So, out of these three managers, who would you prefer to lead Manchester United? I still will stick to my first video, which I had put on this channel, and I said, believe in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, trust in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. At this moment of time, when we are 11 unbeaten, you cannot even come out and say Ole out anyway. But I think what this manager is trying to do, and we have achieved a stat that we are the youngest side to be put out in the Premier League this season. So he is putting a lot of faith in the youngsters. You can see the development of the academy and the amount of academy players that are coming out of the academy. In terms of, look at Brendan Williams, look at Scott McTominay, look at so many players, Angel Gomez, look at Tahith Chong, Jimmy Garner, Ethan Laird. There are so many players, Dean Henderson. I mean, they are flourishing, and you just need to give them motivation, a chance, and some time to develop, to grow, learn, develop. And I think we are on the right track. So as a club, we do need to move forward, keeping in mind our own youth academy, making sure that we buy players who are young, making sure that we are buying players who are coming to Manchester United not for money. The reason why I love Odion Ighalo is not because of his goals, while his goals have helped, but I love him because he wanted to come to Manchester United because he was a fan. He wanted to come to Manchester United because he wanted to play for the jersey, for the badge. And that's what's been lacking. And I'm not accusing Paul Pogba of doing the same thing, because for me, Paul Pogba has been nothing but a professional player. Because Mino Raiola has come out and said shit over the past few months on Twitter and in interviews that he's given in Italy and everywhere else. But Paul Pogba, for me, has not done anything. And I mean, in his story, he was wearing a Juventus T-shirt, but that was just to give support to Blas Matuidi, who's been tested positive of coronavirus. So Paul Pogba for me has been a professional. If we can keep him and tie him down to a contract, because he'll be 27 this season, if I'm not wrong. I think he'll be 27 this season. So at 27 years of age, if he can be fit throughout the season, if he wants to be at Manchester United, and if he can get those a few players in around him, and along with Bruno Fernandes, it will be a crazy team. And then we are not far away from challenging for the title. Maybe the next 2 years and we challenge. So we need this rebuild. We need to get the deadwood out, and I think we are on the right track. And this is the reason. While Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is still a very naive coach, and the biggest problems for me right now is the fact that he does tend to overplay a lot of players. Harry Maguire is the biggest example. Fred, and I have a very, very, very strong feeling, and I'm really scared that Bruno Fernandes is going to fall in that same list if we don't buy that player in the summer. So that attacking midfielder in the summer. So that's what's going to happen. But I think while Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is learning at the job, he is getting a lot of things right. At least the atmosphere in the club is a good one. There's a good vibe around the club, and that's what you want, because it's a transition. It's going to take some time. It has taken 8 years, 9 years now. But right now, I think there's a lot of positivity to be seen in and around the club amongst the supporters as well. So let's stick to our manager, let's stick to our players, let's just support them during these hard times. People, stay indoors, stay at home. If you wanna bring about a change in the world, I think it starts with you today by staying at home. Can't emphasize this enough to everyone, but I'm sure everybody already knows this. I just hope and pray that all of you are safe, and you will be seeing me again very soon. Take care, keep dreaming about football, and keep praying that we just get this football back. Until next time, guys, take care.